Hey everyone, Karnak here of Star Wars Armada Explained, bringing you yet another interview, this time with someone who placed 7th at this year's Worlds. Could you please introduce yourself and also just let us know how did you start in Star Wars Armada and how long you've been playing?
Yeah, hello. My name's Sam. So I've been playing Armada since about Wave 2, I think. Yeah, Wave 2, because I was just walking through a game store and I saw the Imperial Star Destroyer on the shelf there, and I was like, well, there's a game in which you can push around Star Destroyers. I'm sold, and just bought in hard from there, and I've been playing ever since.
Awesome. So you've been playing for a couple of years then, which is great because obviously that reflected in your skill level at Worlds, obviously placing as high as you did. So your fleet list that you brought to Worlds, can you describe a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's an Interdictor and a Pryce Quasar and then a Gozanti and your typical squad ball. Um, and I sort of started tinkering around with this like two ship archetype, as you would call it, after helping Fett or Matt develop it. I was his punching bag for many matches. He had me bring all sorts of different things versus it while he was fine tuning it. And after so many crushing defeats at it, I thought, hey, maybe I'll give this a try, see what it's all about. Um, but I didn't want to really directly lift his list, so I approached it from the side of what if I put Price onto the Quasar and then maximized my threat range that I could get with my squadrons. So originally I had a Kuat with Chimera and all fighters follow me on it, and then your typical Squall with all the movement shenanigans, and added Reimer into the mix so that I could have a crazy long reach, and I could price turn one, and then whatever was in range would get deleted. I think at that point I had uh, Maarek, Morna, Reimer, and Bosk together, so that's a pretty fearsome little
Yeah,
group there.
absolutely.
Yeah, they could take out pretty much any small ship or several small ships on the wrap if I had first player, or put some serious hurt onto a large base. But the issue was having speed 3 on that ISD. Um, I really put myself in bad situations a lot and ended up
Gotta go
tabling
fast.
myself. Yeah, exactly. I was just so excited to get all those black dice from that Kuant in there. But I had put Hondo on it to charge all fighters follow me, so I didn't have to, have Chimera be wasted points for the next 5 rounds. I could actually use my fleet commands. So it made the ISD not very tanky. So then I had the thought um, to switch in the Interdictor, and that is when it really started to click for me with this list, because I was able to now start doing objective play. I could station assault, contested outpost, and salvage run, and then pull everything towards me, make little corridors for my Quasar to fly through, and make it very difficult for people to try and attack it. Um, really sort of force tempo and force people to try and engage me, which in turn brought them into that squadron attack range. So yeah, that's just sort of how I got to that point, and I just had a blast with it. The all the little tricks that you can do, like fighter coordination teams on the Interdictor, lets you get a double splash in a single round off from Mauler if you have him on a rock. You can heal like 3 times about, I think, between fighter coordination teams, Squall, and a natural movement on a squadron. So I've brought Maarek and Morna back from near death several times. So it's a fun list to play.
So definitely, I would say there's a few few more bits of moving parts compared to the typical two-ship list.
Yeah, I would say so, but it moves a lot slower too, whereas um, typical two ship sort of picks its big target and then goes for it and deletes it. Mine is just sort of makes people come to you, play your objectives, and then you can just grind them down with the heavy ions and the squadrons. And then meanwhile, that interdictor is nigh unkillable with the targeting scramblers and Brunson on there and the title.
Right, that's what I was looking at. So you're trading essentially the 1-2 punch power of an ISD Avenger with the, okay, I'm so tanky and can repair so much, I can just outlast whatever you try to throw at me.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's same. It's interesting that these philosophies of two ship is, again, it's like one side is that activation power of just everything in one activation, compared to Interdictor. Yeah, you still have that activation power, but now it's shifted to the Quasar. But in the Interdictor can still throw out punches because heavy ion emplacements. I mean, yeah, it throws the 4 damage, but if you can roll that blue critical, that's an extra 3 damage. I mean, you're hitting about as hard as an ISD can, and they can't brace that damage.
Yeah, exactly. It can be pretty brutal, especially when uh, you're laying into a big ship like that. My fleet it's really good at using those squadrons on that turn 1-2 wrap to sort of take out some of the infrastructure of an opponent's list, take out some of the small bases or some of the squads, and then from that point forward, the interdictor is able to start grinding down, and then the squads can contribute, and yeah, just like you said, just sort of outlasts them. And starting up on points always helps too. So second player is almost preferred for this list, really.
Yes, and my question for you is, did you face any matchups that you just, like just didn't win or you weren't expecting?
Um, so the only matchup that I would say I truly lost, I mean, I lost to Truthiness, but we were pretty close there at the end. I think he had like a 36 MOV over me because he couldn't take out those pesky stations. I kept both stations alive, and it's an 80-point swing. It can be really huge. But my bad loss was against. I did play Tok'ra. That was round 4 on day 1, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I had Pryce turn 2 because he deployed very defensively, and it was going great until turn 1 with my Squall. I, for some reason, moved Jendon and Mauler in front of Squall and then proceeded to overlap them,
Oh no.
going into the Pryce turn. So then he had his Squall and his nasty, nasty Sloan Ball just pick apart my squads while I could do nothing but watch. And yeah, that wasn't great, but he's the world champ, so it is what it
Well,
is.
what a lot of people also not having, for me personally, not having been to Worlds, and for a lot of people who haven't been to Worlds, by the time that you reach round 4, you're at literally 10 plus hours of playing Armada. It's not a matter of playing well; it's making less mistakes than your opponent.
Yeah, most definitely. And what was funny was my third round match ended in probably 30 to 45 minutes.
Oh, geez.
So I think I was sitting around for like 3 hours before round 4 started, and I was just getting groggier and more sleepy. And yeah, I was not in a good
Yeah,
spot that
your
time.
brain wasn't keeping engaged with the match. You weren't staying in your headspace. I can definitely see how, mistakes like that can happen.
Yeah, but luckily it didn't cost me the opportunity to make it to day 2, which was all I was really trying to do when I came to Worlds. I had really no expectations other than hoping to do well enough to make day 2.
Yeah, get all those sexy sweet acrylics.
Right? Just get everything that I can for just playing games, getting the shield dials and those maneuver templates, just sort of the here you showed up, here take this prize.
Yeah, I was very excited to finally get a turn counter. I've been using like a six-sided die for the last 2 years, so I was happy
Nice.
with that.
Yeah, that's good. I'll have to use that because me and most of my local opponents just play the whole "what round are we on" game.
Yep,
We
and I
forget
like
to track it often.
forget to track it, but at the same time, it's also color coded, so it's never like, oh yeah, which side? I don't remember. I don't know. Because you think
Yeah.
you think of as much as we play, like we'd have it memorized, but I can't tell you how many times I'll play against Schmitty or like Ardahal or Broba, and we're like, fuck if I know, you know.
Right?
uh, so as great as your fleet list is, and again, congratulations on placing seventh. But
Thank you, thank you.
I want to talk about the top two fleet lists. I know for me personally, when I was watching them set up, I was like, oh man, okay, this is cool. Wait, there isn't any large ships. Wait, is that an Archidans? And
Nah.
I was blown away because I hadn't seen either of their lists before, and I just couldn't believe that there was no large ships, there was no Pryce, no Bale, it just nothing that what we had come to expect was the quote unquote standard of the meta at top table, which goes to show that just like with anything, just because a lot of other people say this is how it is, it really doesn't mean that's actually how it is.
Yeah, I mean, list building can have an effect for sure on the game, but ultimately it does come down to the players behind it and their decision making throughout the game. I think that's why you consistently see the same people at the top tables. I mean, look at Nate; he's always up there, and
Norm.
Tokra's always Norm's up there, and yeah, so there. It really just comes down to um, knowing their fleet, knowing what they're trying to do with it, and the decision points that they make in the game. I think that's also why people that netlist in this game rarely get the results that they want because um, you really need to know what you're trying to do with the list when you're flying it, and that often starts at conception. Whereas if you just look at someone's list online, you could be taking it in a totally different direction than the original developer intended. Um, but looping back to your question about no large ships on the table, um, I don't know if that's all that surprising, considering the fact that they both were max or pretty near max squadron lists. That's been a recurring theme since pretty much the beginning of Worlds, right?
Yeah, so and that's one thing I'm glad you brought that up is the fact that both fleets had their points split to where even if you killed one or two aspects of that list, you're not getting the rest of that list. It's hard to get a table victory against a fleet like that for either of them.
Yeah, definitely. Since they've got that MSU component to it, and a lot of them are pretty durable in the case of Nathan's fleet, or spread out all across the entire board in the regards to Tokra's fleet, it does give them that tabling insurance that a lot of squadron fleets can struggle with. I really did like how Tokra set that up with Centaur
Yeah,
and the Quasar sort of flying near-ish each other so that whichever one was targeted, he still had the capabilities of
of
commanding his
commanding
entire
squadrons.
squadron
Yep.
force. Yeah, if you take out that Quasar, cool, I'm going to pseudo relay through Centaur now, which I can extend even further with Jendon, and just plink at you from with these Gozantis and the Raider even. But if you take out Centaur, then I've got my Quasar still pushing everything all at once. So it's a really nifty list. I liked it a lot.
I definitely it. I mean, a lot of people had looked at Center Core and saw that synergy there with the relay through Center Core to Jendon, but nobody had ever really taken the effort. I know I hadn't to really make that work, and I think that Dennis identified that aspect with Salone and was like, I can make this work. And like with anything, as I've said in other interviews, he practiced. Like he's been practicing and flying that list for like the last year and a half at least.
Yeah, and it shows because he knows exactly how it's supposed to fly. He knows how to face a variety of different opponents, um, especially Pryce fleets. He
Yep.
didn't have any Pryce in his list at all, and he was able to knock out a few different Pryce fleets on the way up to that top table, I think. So it really comes down to just like you said, he practiced a bunch with it, and he knew exactly what he was trying to do in every matchup.
So that kind of brings me to my next point is the squadrons. I mean, we've seen squadrons at top tables for pretty much forever for this game. Some people in the community think that the squadrons are bringing the game down. Some people think the squadrons are it's part of the game. You just need to accept it and understand it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm a bit conflicted. When I first started the game, I really did not care for squadrons at all. I was of the opinion that I got in this game for the ship combat. I want to fly ISDs. I want to fly big Montel ships. I'm not trying to fiddle with these little um, plink damage, little gnats. You know what I mean? If I wanted to play with squadrons, I would have played X-wing. That's not why I'd gotten into the game. But now, having played it a bunch, I do enjoy some of the intricacy it brings. Um, and it is very thematic. I know people say it's a combined arms game, and it really is because it is based on that World War II carrier and Air Force feel. Um, so I think yeah, I mean squadrons are important, but I do think they could at this point be considered a little bit potentially too strong in the sense how they're not tied to a maneuver template like ships are. They do this plink damage where they overload defense tokens. Um, and it's really hard to tie them down unless you have a full size squadron wing of your own, because Intel can make token screens pretty much irrelevant. So it's sort of a tricky spot because squadrons are hugely important in Star Wars, but at the same time, this is more supposed to be a ship game. That's the general consensus or the feeling that a lot of people have. So it can kind of be a bummer when squadrons overshadow that ship aspect of it.
Yeah, somebody in one of my other interviews mentioned that they always loved seeing like ISDs and MC80s on the table because that drew more people over to ask questions rather than a bunch of ships they've never seen before and a bunch of tiny little things. What are those tiny little blobs on stands? They can't even make out what the fighters are.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Also, because the squadron game can be so fiddly, and yet at the same time, it has to be so precise in that, it can come down to a millimeter, and then at the same time, you need to make sure that you're going to land in a spot that's in range of this dude, but out of range of this other squad. But then, oh, do I have the range to even make it to that spot? But I want to stay out of your intel. And there's all nuances to it. So it can really slow the game down if you've got someone that's not, just playing quick.
Familiar with it,
And that
yeah.
can also make it seem a little underwhelming on the table. Whereas if these ships are moving and firing these big fistfuls of dice at each other, that seems a lot more exciting than, rolling one blue at each other the entire game.
I think somebody during my world stream was all like, "Oh my god, they threw dice at each other after like half an hour of just maneuvering." But
Yeah.
that's just an aspect of the game, especially at worlds where literally one mistake can cost you a game, and that's just world levels play. But also, at local tournaments and things like that, it's some people can be that way, but for the most part, I just try to fly casual. I don't try to look too much into stuff like that. But like with anything, the more you play and the more you practice, absolutely the faster you get at it too. And that kind of leads me into my next part. You mentioned that the squadron game and things like that. You feel like there's some aspects that could be improved or changed. I definitely feel FFG has been listening to these concerns, and I don't know if they have a plan quite yet that's going to address or fix it in the way that we would prefer. But I think that they understand that that concern is there, and I would like to think that they're trying to work on a way to improve that. And obviously, some of that way is with the new announcements, the new ship announcements, expansions, and oh my gosh, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
Oh yeah, we're getting all the new toys. It is great news after such a long drought that we've been going through. That we've got some new stuff on the horizon, not just like one ship or something or one box, but we've got a campaign box with a whole slew of upgrades in addition to the squadrons that are going to be coming with it. And then we've also got a ship for each side, so that's really exciting.
Out of all of that, what do you think you're most excited for?
Um, well, I would probably say the Rebellion in the Rim campaign. I think there's some really, really fun upgrades in there that I'm really excited to get out in the wild and see
Obviously, new
what players
objective
do with
cards,
them. What was that?
and obviously new objective cards.
And new objective cards. That's huge. That's one of the big draws for me to Armada over X-Wing is there's objective play that gives sort of a different flavor to each game that you're going to play. And adding a whole bunch of new objectives is really going to go a long way to shaking up the meta because different ships are going to be and different lists are going to be better at playing different objectives. So, um, yeah, I think it'll be really, really fun.
But would you say that the future of Armada is pretty bright, and that you feel like that it's going to keep you feel like FFG is going to keep this franchise going?
I mean, I think it's brighter than it has been in the past for pretty much as long as I can remember. Since I've gotten in, people have been complaining about the lack of communication and how long it takes to get waves out. But 2019, FFG said they wanted to sort of get better about communicating with the player base, and I think they've done that, and they're continuing to do that. They're making a lot of announcements about what's in the pipeline and letting people know, this game is not dead. We're still working on it, and now that they've announced Clone Wars, I think that just takes it over the top because I know a lot of people grew up with the prequel trilogy, the prequel trilogy, myself included, and remember seeing that space battle over Coruscant to open Revenge of the. I mean, my goodness, who doesn't want to get those Venators on the table?
Yeah, I was talking to some other people. We really feel like Clone Wars, just like it did with, or rather, how we feel like it's going to do with Legion. It's going to just get us even more popular than what we have been. And I think it's really going to draw a lot of new player base in. So for the getting to the final end of our segment here, is there anything that you would like to touch about Armada, any aspects of it, or do you want to do any shout outs, or what do you have you want to say?
Um, no, I think I'm good. Just want to say thanks to all my opponents at Worlds. I had a blast playing all those games. Really fun meeting everyone that I've talked to online and bounced ideas off of and everything. It was really cool to be able to meet them in person. And I'll give a shout out to Broba Fett for starting this whole two-ship madness and getting me to actually like Squadrons a little bit.
Yeah, he definitely really helped to, I think, revitalize what was considered starting to become a stagnant meta, and it really threw everything a wrench in everything. So thanks, Broba.
Yeah.
Jeez, guy, gosh. But great. Sam, I thank you so much for coming on to these interviews. I've gotten a lot of feedback from the community. They love hearing from players, love hearing from other nerds, and just it really, I feel like, is the kind of content that we've been kind of craving that hasn't been provided. So I appreciate your willing, especially so late at night, to come on, do this interview. And to my viewers that are watching, thank you so much for watching this. If you do have a comment you'd like to ask Sam about anything, please be sure to leave it on the video. I'll make sure he knows about it. And like always, I'll catch you guys next time.
May the force be with you all.